aimcat aspirants, welcome to this video from Time, the proven leaders in test prep. This video is on a very important topic that can elevate your reading comprehension skills, figures of speech. You might wonder, why should I care about figures of speech in reading comprehension passages? Well, let me tell you, authors use them to add depth, emotion and subtlety in their writing. If you don't recognize these devices, you might miss out on keytones, implied meaning and even answer traps in reading comprehension passages. Stay tuned as I break down the most common figures of speech, their significance and how they impact reading comprehension passages. Let's sharpen your reading skills and get you closer to your dream CAT score. Okay, so let's begin with the topic for the day, literary devices, the art of hidden meaning. Now, let's begin with the first things first, the definition of figures of speech. What are figures of speech? Figures of speech are also called literary devices and they are those words or phrases that are used in a non-literal sense for rhetorical or vivid effect. As I told you already, authors use them widely to add depth, subtlety and emotion to their writing. Then we have figures of speech, so many of them that enhance meaning, add depth or create a striking effect. Authors also use them to compare or identify one thing with another that has a familiar meaning or connotation. So these are what figures of speech are all about, and we proceed with why figures of speech matter in reading comprehension passages. So I touched upon it in the beginning itself, but here we go with a little bit of detail. They enhance depth and nuance in language. They reveal the author's tone and intent and they help in decoding complex texts. So there's a lot that figures of speech do, and if we stay tuned to them, we get to know them better, then it will certainly help us in understanding, interpreting, reading comprehension passages in a deeper sense. So they are also commonly used in editorials, literature and philosophical writing. Having said so, I hope you understand that there is no written text in which figures of speech are not used. So it gives us all the more reason to help to understand them better. Okay, we have more coming up. They enhance comprehension by creating vivid imagery, and as I proceed and help you understand reading figures of speech better, you will know why I say that they enhance comprehension by creating vivid imagery. They help in interpreting deeper meanings and author's intent. So authors write, and when they want to help us understand something in a deeper way, they take the use of figures of speech. Figures of speech go a long way in helping authors present or convey their ideas in a very profound and deep sense. They are frequently tested in CAT RC passages to assess language proficiency, and this is where our goal is. Okay, so let's take a look at the application of figures of speech in RC questions now. Tone and attitude. There are a few questions where we are asked to identify the subtleties of sarcasm, humor or solemnity. Then we have inference-based questions that we need to answer because they can be answered better and more accurately if we understand what figures of speech imply. So, figures of speech help in deciphering implied meanings, which will then help us answer inference-based questions accurately. In addition to that, there could be word or phrase-based meanings, and understanding figurative language in context helps us understand the meanings of words, phrases in a better way. Then let me tell you what are the key figures of speech in reading comprehension passages. So these are a few figures of speech that we come across commonly. You may either find them in passages themselves, and you may need to identify them. You may also find them mentioned in answer choices in questions. So we have a simile, metaphor, hyperbole, personification, metonymy and synecdoche. So these are a few that I will take you through in this video and give you some clarity on, and I hope you will be able to identify them after you finish watching this video. Whenever you read, please try to understand if there is any of these figures of speech present in whatever you read, and this will go a long way in helping you do whatever I have just discussed with you, answering a lot of RC questions in a better and more accurate manner. So what is a simile? A simile is that figure of speech which compares two unlike entities using the words like and as. So a simile is that which uses like and as, and therefore it's a direct comparison. We have an example. Her smile was as bright as the sun. Okay, so as you can see, as has been mentioned, and clearly this is used to compare the smile of this person to the sun, and while there is a direct comparison here, we also understand that there are two unlike entities being compared. Okay, so on one side we have a human being, and the smile of a human being is being compared to the brightness of the sun. What figure of speech has been employed here is a simile. We have another example. She is like a rose in the garden. So here like has been used to compare this person with a rose. The significance is that it enhances clarity and imagery by drawing explicit comparisons. Okay. Then comes up a metaphor. A metaphor is also used for comparing, and it is a direct comparison but without using like and as. So it is a direct comparison also between two unlike entities, but a metaphor does not use these words like or as, unlike as in a simile. Okay, so the example is time is a thief. Now, if the same sentence were to be written using a simile, it would read as time is like a thief. But here, because the word like is missing, we know that there is a comparison. It is not as if time is actually a thief. Time is being compared to a thief, but here it's that kind of a comparison where like is missing, and the figure of speech that you need to recognize and identify is a metaphor. What is the significance? The significance is that it creates stronger associations and deeper meanings through implied comparison. So you can see that the comparison is implied, and you need to focus on it and understand and recognize the literary device that is used. Okay. The next one now is personification. How do we understand personification? Personification is attributing human qualities to non-human things or abstract ideas. Now, this example will help you understand things better. The wind whispered through the trees. Wind is not a human being, so it cannot have human-like characteristics or qualities, but as you find here, the wind is said to be whispering through the trees. This tells us that in this sentence, the author has given wind, which is an otherwise abstract entity, a human-like form or a human-like trait, and that is why the author says the wind whispered through the trees. Okay, the significance is that it brings life and emotion to descriptions. So authors use it to ensure that there is so much of vivid imagery, and there's so much of depth and life in whatever they have written, and for this they personify those abstract entities that are otherwise lifeless and therefore mute. Then we have a hyperbole. Now, the word itself should give you some idea. Hyper is anything that's excess or excessive. So, how do we understand a hyperbole? It is exaggeration for emphasis or dramatic effect. So, this is an example, and here a hyperbole has been used. I have a million things to do today. Now, does it mean that literally this person has a million things to do? That's not humanly possible, especially in one day. But this is the author's way of exaggerating and trying to convey the fact that the person is really very, very busy and the day is filled with numerous activities. And this tells us that the figure of speech employed here is a hyperbole. The significance is that it adds dramatic impact and creates humor or intensity. Okay, you may have heard people saying, I haven't met my friend for 100 years now. Now, is that exactly humanly possible? No, it isn't. So, what is the purpose? The purpose is to add that kind of effect or impact to give a feeling that this person has not met somebody for a long time. Now, instead of saying it directly or simply that I haven't met my friend for a long time, if somebody says I haven't met him or her for 100 years, it means that the person is trying to dramatize this, and therefore the figure of speech that this person has used is a hyperbole. Then we have the next one, a metonymy. What is a metonymy? When authors substitute the name of one thing with something closely associated with it, then the figure of speech that we have is a metonymy. Check this example. The White House issued a statement. Now, instead of the president who is in the White House issued a statement, the author says the White House issued a statement. Now, go back to the definition and try to understand. Substituting the name of one thing, the name of president in this case, with something that is closely associated with it. The White House and the president of the US are closely related with each other, and therefore instead of saying the president issued a statement, the words are the White House issued a statement. So here we come across a metonymy. The significance or the importance of using a metonymy is that it creates concise and impactful expressions. We have a synecdoche now. Now, a synecdoche is used when a part represents the whole or the whole represents a part. Now, this is very easy and simple to understand, and this example will actually give you a very clear idea. All hands on deck. Now, hands represent sailors or crew members. So, instead of saying all the sailors should come on deck or everybody on deck, this person says all hands on deck, and here we find that all hands represent sailors. Okay, so we have a very clear and very accurate example of a synecdoche. I'm sorry, what is the significance here? It enhances brevity and adds symbolic depth to the writing. So, when you take a look or when you try to identify these figures of speech in reading comprehension passages, it enhances your understanding of the text at hand, and as I discussed earlier itself, it then takes you towards answering questions that will be posed to you. Okay, so I hope this has given you some clarity. Now, we have this small exercise. Identify the literary device in the following excerpt. So, take a look at this excerpt. Stay tuned as I read it out to you. As I waited for my friend at the coffee shop, time seemed to stretch into eternity. The barista told me it would be just a moment, but every second felt like an hour. I checked my watch and it appeared that a whole millennium had passed since I sat down. I began to wonder if I had entered a time warp where minutes transform into epochs. Finally, when my friend arrived, it felt like the weight of 1,000 years had been lifted, and I realized my impatience had turned a brief wait into an epic saga. So, I hope you are able to identify the most important figure of speech. What is it? As you can see in the sentences, the first one, time seemed to stretch into eternity. So, I hope you are able to recognize here that the figure of speech is a hyperbole. Time stretched into eternity. Eternity is such a long period of time. Then the barista told me it would be just a moment, but every second felt like an hour. So again, there's so much of exaggeration that the author has used here. I checked my watch and it appeared that a whole millennium had passed. Another sentence where hyperbole is being used. I began to wonder if I had entered a time warp where minutes transformed into epochs. Epochs are so many hundreds of years, and then the weight of 1,000 years had been lifted and a brief wait had turned into an epic saga. So all these should tell you that in this excerpt, the author has very effectively used hyperbole to create this kind of dramatic effect, where the author is trying to tell us that this person who is waiting anxiously, eagerly for his or her friend to arrive is losing patience, and this is how the person expresses his or her impatience. Okay, so this, I hope, tells you the importance of figures of speech and how they help us understand the depth and emotion and tones of authors. Now, wait for more, and I'm going to come back again for more on figures of speech. Till then, all the best. Thank you.